Barry Gibb, the eldest brother of the Gibb family, the living icon of the legendary band Bee Gees, has finally opened his heart. At the age of 78, he no longer hides the pain deep inside him. He recounts, with sincerity, with torment, about his talented but ill-fated youngest brother, Andy Gibb. Barry, the one who has written over 1,000 songs, the one who created immortal hits like Stayin' Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, Night Fever, after decades at the pinnacle of music, still has to face an emptiness that nothing can fill. An emptiness named Andy Gibb, the young singer who once captivated the whole world with sweet songs like I Just Want to Be Your Everything, Shadow Dancing. But behind that glamour, Andy was just a boy in his early 20s, fragile, yearning to be loved, and ultimately swept into the whirlwind of fame and deadly temptations. At 78, Barry Gibb has spoken the truth he kept in his heart for nearly 40 years. The truth about the helplessness of watching his brother slide into suffering. The truth about the guilt of an eldest brother, who despite doing everything still could not save his brother from tragedy. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in listening to this story not just with your mind, but with your heart as well. Because this is not just a story about a pop star. This is a story about brotherhood, about family, and about the pain that stage lights can never cover. Barry Allen Crompton Gibb was born on September 1, 1946, in Douglas, on the small island of Isle of Man. From a young age, Barry showed extraordinary musical talent. The Gibb family, though not wealthy, saw in that boy a special light. They not only encouraged him, but also joined Barry on the path of art. In the 1950s, the Gibb family migrated to Australia. There, Barry and his two younger brothers, Robin and Maurice, began their musical journey. They performed in small shows, modest stages, but even in that simplicity, people could feel the magical harmony in the voices of the three young men. It was the bond of blood, of brotherhood, that created a kind of music that could not be imitated. From small stages in Australia, Bee Gees reached out to the world. By the late 1960s and especially in the 1970s, they became a global phenomenon. The songs of Bee Gees were not just mere entertainment tracks. They were the heartbeat of an entire generation, the soul of the disco era. Stayin' Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, Night Fever. Those songs resounded like the heartbeat of the 70s. And at the center was Barry, with his legendary falsetto voice, soaring and haunting, making millions of hearts around the world tremble. But not stopping at Bee Gees, Barry also proved himself to be one of the greatest songwriters in history. He composed, he produced, and he was behind immortal hits for many big names: Barbara Streisand, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Diana Ross, Dionne Warwick. Over 1,000 songs, decades dominating the charts, a career that any artist would look up to. But behind that brilliant glamour, Barry Gibb was still just an eldest brother who loved his younger brothers dearly. To him, Bee Gees was not just a band, it was family. It was flesh and blood. It was where his heart belonged. And that is why, when he successively lost Maurice, Robin, and especially Andy, the youngest brother, Barry had to endure a pain that seemed impossible to overcome. In 1966, at just 19 years old, Barry entered his first marriage with Maureen Bates. However, his exploding music career, the pressure of fame, and the whirlwind life of a young star quickly shattered that short-lived happiness. Just a few years later, the marriage ended. It was a costly lesson. Stage glamour cannot replace the stability of emotional life. But then fate brought Barry a major turning point. In 1970, during a recording of the Top of the Pops show in London, he met Linda Gray, former Miss Edinburgh, and that moment, according to Barry, was destiny. They fell in love quickly, deeply, and right on Barry's 24th birthday, they got married. From then until now, over half a century has passed. Linda remains the strongest pillar in Barry's life. Amid media storms, irreplaceable losses, she still stands by him, quietly but steadfastly. In a showbiz world full of broken marriages, this love is proof of rare, enduring strength. Barry and Linda have 5 children, Stephen, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra. The eldest son, Stephen, follows his father's footsteps in music, but instead of disco, he pursues rock and heavy metal, proof of the diversity in the creative flow of the Gibb family. Barry is not just a star, but also a father, a grandfather proud of his 7 grandchildren. Family has given Barry something that glamour cannot: peace. It is Linda and the children who have helped him maintain balance, so he can continue his career while facing the pain of successively bidding farewell to his brothers. In 2009, Barry and Linda officially became U.S. citizens, while still retaining British citizenship. It was not just a legal procedure, but a symbol of Barry's life. A man attached to his British heritage, but who has found home and success in the United States. When mentioning Barry Gibb, we immediately think of Bee Gees, of disco, of globally resounding hits. But few know that, in his life, there was also a special, unexpected friendship with another legend, Michael Jackson. Barry once recounted that Michael was not just the king of pop that the world knew, but also a very different person when in the warmth of the Gibb family. In Miami, at Barry's house, Michael often came to seek refuge, away from the chaos of luxury hotels and the chasing lights of the media. Imagine Michael Jackson, who made the whole world awestruck on stage, sitting quietly in Barry's kitchen, watching live TV of fans cheering below the hotel, and chuckling with his characteristic high-pitched hee-hee, a simple scene but also full of strangeness. Barry also said that Michael once lived right on the upper floor of the house, just before the noisy lawsuit about child abuse allegations exploded. Notably, the two never talked about that lawsuit. Their friendship did not revolve around scandals, but the resonance of 2 artistic souls. They wrote music together, played and sang together, and sometimes drank until Michael fell asleep right on the floor. Barry said those were very human, very ordinary moments, completely opposite to the distant image that the public attached to Michael. And when Michael passed away in 2009, Barry admitted he felt an emptiness hard to fill. He missed his friend, missed the laughter, missed Michael's unexpected creativity. To Barry, Michael was not just a music icon, but also a friend who left a deep mark in his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, the friendship between Barry Gibb and Michael Jackson is proof that behind music monuments, there are still fragile people, yearning for safety, yearning for genuine friendship. And in that friendship, we see a very human side of legends who seem superhuman. Besides music and family, Barry Gibb has another passion, preserving heritage values in music. And that passion led him to one of the most special decisions in his life: buying the house of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash in Hendersonville, Tennessee. That house was not just an architectural structure, it was a historical witness where countless creative moments, love stories, and music of one of the greatest couples in country music took place. For Barry, owning this house was not simply a real estate investment. He wanted to turn it into a meeting place, a creative space, a sanctuary, to continue the spirit of American music. However, fate is sometimes too cruel. In April 2007, while the building was under renovation, a fierce fire suddenly broke out. In an instant, the entire house, along with priceless memories, turned to ashes. Barry Gibb recounted that he was in extreme pain watching that heritage destroyed right before his eyes. The house was not just where he placed his hopes, but also the land he wanted to preserve for future generations. But all that remained was ruins and memories. After that, he still decided to build a new house on that land, as a way to honor the spirit of Johnny and June. But then, in 2014, Barry sold the property, closing a chapter full of regret. The story of Johnny Cash's house is not just a real estate accident. It is also a symbol of the fragility of memories and heritage. No matter how noble human intentions are, sometimes fate brings uncontrollable events. For Barry, that fire not only burned down a building, but also burned a part of the dream he dedicated to music. However, from this tragedy, we see in him a lesson: perseverance, resilience, and the ability to let go when necessary to continue on the long journey. At 78, Barry Gibb has finally bravely opened his heart, speaking the truth he kept secret for nearly 40 years. The truth about Andy Gibb, the youngest brother, a musical genius but ill-fated. Andy was not just the brother of Bee Gees. He was an independent phenomenon, a young star full of charisma. When just over 20, Andy conquered the world with hits like I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Shadow Dancing. Andy's voice was acknowledged by Barry himself as the purest, the clearest among the brothers. A heaven-given voice, strong enough to take Andy to the peak for many decades. But ladies and gentlemen, behind the radiant smile and the fervent admiration from the public, Andy was a fragile soul. Barry revealed that from the early days watching his brother on stage, he sensed the weakness hidden behind his eyes. Andy yearned to be loved, yearned to be recognized, and those voids made his brother vulnerable to the harsh temptations of glamour. Fame came too fast, too soon. Andy did not have enough time to mature, to build a protective shell for himself. When the stage lights shone, they also exposed the cracks in his soul and the temptations of showbiz, drugs, alcohol, fragile relationships quickly surrounded Andy. Barry painfully recounted that he tried his best to protect his brother. He wrote music for Andy, produced for Andy, and always stood behind to support. But he admitted that sometimes love and support were still not enough. Andy got lost in addiction, in long, lonely nights, and in the insecurity that even global fame could not fill. In 1988, Andy Gibb passed away, just 5 days after his 30th birthday. Barry recounted in choking emotion that just a few days before, the two brothers had an argument. He did not expect that to be the last time he saw Andy alive. That torment became a wound that never heals in Barry's heart. Andy was a brilliant star, Barry said, but he had to carry pains on his shoulders that the world never saw. I tried, but could not save my brother. And that is the obsession I carry to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of Andy Gibb is not just the tragedy of a young talent. It is a mirror reflecting the dark side of glamour. When fame is too great, it not only lifts a person up, but sometimes can also devour their soul. For Barry Gibb, losing Andy was such a wound. He once said, "Every time I hear Andy's voice again, it's like time stops. I see him still there, but then remember that it's all just memories." After 1988, when Andy left at 30, Barry stepped on stage with a completely different mindset. Every song, every melody was not just music, but also the way he kept Andy alive forever. Each lyric seemed to contain both love and regret. He shared that sometimes he felt like he was singing for Andy, sending messages that his youngest brother did not have time to say. Each soaring falsetto note was not just Bee Gees' mark, but also a brother's whisper to his departed brother. Barry also did not hesitate to admit the guilt that always haunted him. He wondered, if I had been stricter, if I had protected him differently, would Andy still be alive? Those unanswered questions haunted Barry for decades. But instead of letting the pain bury him, he chose to turn it into motivation to continue creating. At 78, when he finally dared to speak the truth, Barry was not just crying for the past. He wants the world to understand that Andy was not just an ill-fated pop singer. Andy was a part of the Gibb family's soul, a part of flesh and blood in every song, every note of Barry's. He once confided, "We were brothers first, then musicians. Music is just the language, but family is what defines everything. Losing Andy is losing a part of myself." Ladies and gentlemen, that is what makes Barry Gibb's story so profoundly moving. Because behind the image of a great music legend is a man carrying an eternal wound in his heart, and the way he keeps Andy alive forever, not through monuments or pictures, but through music, the immortal language, something the whole world can hear and feel. If this story has touched your heart, I hope you take a moment to reflect. Remember the loved ones in your life. Cherish every moment, because time never comes back. And if you want to continue accompanying me on journeys exploring behind the stage lights, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss emotional stories about music legends. Please leave a comment below. Share your thoughts about Barry, about Andy, or about the music memories tied to your youth. Because it's your stories, your emotions, that make music memories vivid and immortal. Finally, please share this video with friends, family, those who once loved Bee Gees music or throbbed with Andy's sweet voice, so we can together keep the music and memories of them alive through many generations.